Hilchos Ishus Perek Tishi'i, the laws of marriage, chapter 9. Today we're talking about confusing cases in Kiddushin. Cases where a person tried to get a consecration going, but either there's more than one person involved, there's doubt who the intent was. We're going to see in the end of the chapter also about rumors. What happens if there's a rumor that a woman was married? Is she considered married? Just a rumor. You don't have actual edim. What do? So all these and more are going to be discussed today. It says the Rambam halacha aleph, hamekadesh shtei nashim. A person gives kiddushin to two women. She'asur lisa shteyan mishum erva ke'achas. You would not be able to marry both of them together. Each one on their own, you could marry. But together you cannot marry. What's an example of that? Two sisters. Yeah? You can marry one sister. You can marry the other sister. But together you cannot marry them. So what do? You gave kiddushin to both. He gave the money to both of them at the same time. What happens? Einan mekudashes. They're not consecrated. Keitza, what does that look like? You're going shekidesh isha ubita, or shtei achayes ke'achas. If you consecrated a mother and a daughter, or two sisters together, ein achas me'en mekudashes. Not even one of them is consecrated because since you cannot marry both of them at the same time, so neither kiddushin works. Now, let me ask you what happens in the case of a crowd. Kidesh nashim rabbis ke'achas. Yeah. What if a man is standing with a whole group of women, and he goes, V'amar hare kulchem mikudashes li. He gives one of them some money. She can become the agent for everybody. He gives one of them the money. He says, now, all of you are my wives. In the crowd is two sisters. Or in the crowd is a mother and a daughter. So we just said that those two cannot become married at the same time. Does it affect the whole circle or only them? Says the Rambam, and if there was two sisters or a mother and daughter amongst them, they affect the entire circle and nobody is consecrated. Because he cannot marry those two at the same time, he cannot marry any of them. What if what if he gives the money to one of the women and he says, you know what, everybody here who I could have relations with, I'm marrying. Not all of you, whoever I could have relations with. So then, all of the other people, all the other women are consecrated to him, except for the two sisters, or the mother and the daughter. Those two are a group that cannot come together, but everybody else, he's allowed to have relations with. Similar case. He tells the whole group of women, all of you are consecrated to me, and there was a slave there, or a non-Jewish woman there, or a regular woman who he cannot marry, maybe his aunt, let's say. Ishus, a married woman, his daughter, his sister, something like that. Since he said, I want all of you to become my wife, and all of them cannot, so all of them are cancelled. But again, if he said those words, only the one who is fitting for relations, I want her to become my wife. So all of the women are indeed consecrated, but with the exception of that one woman who the Kiddushin do not take hold of because the Torah doesn't allow it. Halacha Gimel, Amar lishtei achayos. What if a man tells two sisters, here's a coin, one of you becomes my wife. And he gave each one a coin, or he gave one of them two coins for both of them. What do you say? He only said one. He didn't say both. He said, I only want one. What if a guy tells a father, one of your daughters is my wife. And the father takes the coin. But he has 4 daughters. Which daughter is in? The oldest? It says the Rambam, they're all in out of doubt. Kulan srichais get mimenu. All of them need a divorce from him. And he cannot actually marry any of them. The kiddushin that he gave takes hold. He can't follow through. He can't do the action and marry them. But what he did is a valid act. And so all of them become doubtfully married to him. And all of them need to have a divorce.
And they cannot marry to a Kohen.
And now they cannot marry to a Kohen. That's right.
Even if they're wrong, actually.
Maybe they were the wrong one. Doesn't matter. They have a get. Now they cannot marry a Kohen. It's a big consequence. Philip says a good question. What if they were not in the possession of the father? They were over age. then of course you're right. Those are not included. Yeah. Says the Rambam halacha dalid ha'oisa shliach lekadesh lo'isha pleinis. A man appoints an agent. He says, "Get me that woman." He names the woman. He says, "Get me that woman for marriage." The halach v'kid shaloi, and he goes and he does the job. The shliach goes and he consecrates that woman. The kiddush hameshaleach be'atzmoi le'imo lebito la'achoisa. At the same time, while his agent is going to get the woman, the guy himself goes and gets the mother or the sister or the daughter of that woman. Let's check out this chart, okay? I appointed an agent to get me this woman, okay? While the agent is gone, I myself go over to her, the mother, or the sister, or the daughter. Now, I cannot be married to these two people at the same time. So what happens? We don't know which one was first. If we knew which one was first, then that's the one. If the agent reached this woman first, so she's my wife, and all the other ones that I did are worthless. If I reached them first, they're my wife, and this one is worthless. What if we don't know?
But how do you know who's first?
I'm saying if we know who's first, then good. Let's say you had the time. I did it at 3 o'clock, you did it at 3:15. But what if you don't know? Says the Rambam, Shtein tzriches get v'asuras alav. Both of them need to get a divorce, and both are forbidden to be married to him. Same thing on the opposite side. A woman appoints an agent to get her Kiddushin from somebody, the halach v'kitcha, and he goes and gets the money. The halcha v'kitcha, he atzma la'acher, and she goes and gets a Kiddushin from somebody else. And here, they don't even have to be related, because a woman cannot be married to two men at once, ever. So I don't care who it was that you sent the agent to, and you went to another man. If you don't know, if you don't know which one came first, both men have to give this woman a divorce. Now, in this case, the Rambam says, if the two men agree, one of them can actually marry her, and one of them can just give a get. If she doesn't want any of them, both have to give a get. But if not, one can give a get and one can marry. How come in the other case we don't say that? How come in the case of the relatives we don't say that? Because we're going to soon see that in the case of relatives, once you divorce a woman, you can never marry some of her close relatives. So even if you gave a get to one of the women, you wouldn't be able to marry the other woman either. Because al pi Torah, once you're married to a woman, you can never marry her mother or her sister or her daughter ever again. Here the case is, who's the other option? The other option is her mom or her sister or her daughter. Once that's the other option, you cannot go back to her. Because if you were married to her mother, then you can never marry their daughter.
No, after you clean up everything.
I know, I'm telling you. Once you divorce a woman, if you were ever once married to her mother or her sister or her daughter, you cannot marry her.
Oh.
So here the doubt is between the mother and the daughter, or two sisters. So even if you clean up everything, you cannot refresh.
Even the right one.
Yes, exactly. Says the Rambam, when do we say that the two men can both give a get, and one of them can choose to marry if he wants, if the two men were not related? But if the agent would have consecrated her to a father, and she goes and consecrates herself to the son or to the brother of this guy, in this case, like the case of the woman, both men have to give a get, and she can never marry either of them, because like in the case of the woman, when they're related, once you're married to a man, you can never marry his brother or his father or his son. So even if you clean up and you get divorced from both of them, you can never marry any of them. Halacha vav. Ha'omer lishluchai tzei v'kadesh li'isha umeis hashliach. Okay, in today's day and age, not so common because we have so much communication. But let's say you tell an agent, go get me a wife, and the guy dies. And we don't know, did he actually follow through? Did he give the Kiddushin or did he not? You have to assume that he did. Because the presumption is that a shliach does his mission. Since you don't know who the woman was, now you're in a very unfortunate situation. Any woman who has relatives, close relatives, a mother, a sister, or a daughter, any woman in the world, you cannot marry her. Any woman who has a mother, a sister, or a daughter alive, you cannot marry them. Why? Because maybe she was the guy. Maybe she was the woman. And if she was the woman, you cannot marry her or her or her. And so if you're going to try to marry these relatives, you may end up marrying the relative of your real wife, which is a problem. So only if you find a woman who has no mother, no sister, no daughter alive, then you can marry her. But any other woman in the world, you're out. She'im taimar yisazu, because if you say, let him marry a random woman, shema ima kiddush leishluchai, maybe it was her mother who the shliach consecrated, or the sister or the daughter. But he is allowed to marry a woman who has no relatives like this, no mother, no sister, no daughter, is fine. What if she has a relative, a mother or a sister, but that relative is already married? The relative was already married at the time that he appointed the agent. Even if she got divorced before the shliach died, this man in the unfortunate situation can marry that woman. We don't say Shema Kiddush Hashliach as Krevasa Achar Shenisgarsha. Maybe the shliach, caught the moment, and right after that late relative got divorced, he threw in the consecration. Because when he appointed the agent, she wasn't fit to marry him. So even if later she became, it's okay. When I appoint an agent to get me a woman, I mean that he should get me a woman who's available to me at the moment that I appoint him. And since that woman at the moment of appointment was already married, so she's out of the puzzle, and therefore the relative of hers you're allowed to marry. Fascinating case here. Halacha Zayin. Misha hayulei chamisha banim. A person had 5 sons. All of them said, Dad, we want to get married. They made their father, the agent, get us married. So this guy found another guy who has 5 daughters. Okay? And he says, one of your daughters belongs to one of my sons. Didn't say a name, didn't say which girl, didn't say anything. Now what? Call the kibel ha'ava kiddushin, and the father took the money as the kiddushin. Kol achas mehen tzricha chamisha gitin nikola achin. Each girl has to get a divorce from each of the brothers, because maybe she was the girl and maybe he was the guy. Since they all gave permission for the father to get them a wife, whatever he does is valid. And it gets worse. What if one of the brothers dies? And there is a rule: when a husband dies childless, the wife has to marry the brother, yibum, or at least chalitza, at least get the shoe off. So if one of the boys dies, kol achas mehen sricha arba gitin v'chalitza me'echad mehen. Each of the women has to get a get from all the live brothers, plus chalitza from at least one of them. Because in chalitza, when you have a group of brothers, only one of the brothers has to do it.
But no yibum.
No, definitely no yibum, because you don't know who it is. But can you imagine? Every woman will have to get 4 gitin, plus have one of the guys do chalitza. Halacha ches, let's remind ourselves about the stages in womanhood. When a woman is born, she's a ktana. About 12 years old, if she gets physical signs of puberty, she becomes a na'ara. Na'ara lasts for exactly 6 months. At this point, she's still in the possession of her father. Once she turns 12 and a half, she's a full major and out of her father's jurisdiction. Says the Rambam, ha'av shahoisalei bas ketana einara shehi birshusai. A father has a daughter who is a young child, or already began puberty, but in those 6 months of na'arut. So she's still in his jurisdiction. Ubas b'geres, and he also has a daughter who's a major. One daughter is in his jurisdiction, other daughter is not. And the major also gives the father permission to consecrate her. The kiddush bita stam le'echad. And then he goes and he says, my daughter is yours, tells a guy. He owns one of the daughters, the other he doesn't, but she gave him permission. What do you think happens here? Says the Rambam, ein habegeres bichlal. Even though the major daughter gave him permission, when he says, my daughter is going to be married to you, he meant the younger daughter. The major is not included, ad sheyefarish v'yoymar, until he explicitly says, biti habegeres she'asas eisi shliach. I want my major daughter who made me into an agent, I want her to become yours. Then she'll be included. Lefichach ein habegeres mikudeshes. Therefore, in such a case, the major daughter is not consecrated. Va'achaysa mikudeshes, but the sister indeed is. Halacha tes. Misha yesh le shtei kitei banos mishtei nashim. Okay, follow the chart. This man in the middle is married to 2 wives. From each wife, he has 2 daughters. Okay, and we're going to go in order. She's the oldest. He was married to her first. She's the oldest. That's the second. Then he got married to her. she's third and she's fourth. So left to right, that's the age. Says the Rambam, a person has two sets of daughters from two women. The kulan birshusa, they're all in his jurisdiction, they're all underage, under 12. The kiddush achas mehen, and he goes ahead and consecrates one of them. Ubishasa kiddushin, during the consecration, Omar Labal, he tells the husband, the future husband, Kidashti lecha es biti hagdoila. I'm giving you my older daughter. What does he mean by older daughter? There's three options. Afal pisha yesh loymar, even though you could say, Shema gdoila shebagdoila is kiddush loy. Maybe he gave the older girl of the older pair. Remember, this is the older pair, this is the younger pair. Maybe he gave the oldest. Oy gdoila shebaktanis. But maybe he gave the older of the younger. This one. Oy ktana shebagdoilis shehigdoila min agdoila shebaktanis. Or maybe it's this one, because she's older than the younger pair. So which one? Even though you could say all of them, we don't. They're all permitted, only she is married. The oldest of the older pair. She alone is consecrated. Because when you say the older daughter, you meant the oldest of the oldest. Same on the opposite. Guy says, my younger daughter is yours. Which is younger? Again, here you can say three options. Maybe the younger of the younger pair, or the younger in the older pair, or maybe the older of the younger pair because she's younger than the older pair. No, all we say is they're all allowed except for this one, the youngest of the young. She alone is consecrated. Why? Because the implication of the word older daughter means there is no older daughter than her. When I say younger daughter, I mean daughter who there's nobody younger than. And therefore, you only go to the extremes, the oldest and the youngest. Before a girl reaches the age of majority, the father is always believed to say, my daughter's married, because he has the right. And by saying that, he forbids her on all men, because she's married. But what if the father says, I took money from somebody to give my daughter as a wife. I don't know who it is though. This woman is in a really sad space. She cannot marry any man ever. Till the father says, I know that it's this guy that I gave her to, and then she'll only require a divorce from him. Even if he finds out after she becomes a major, he can reveal the truth and say it was this man. But if he doesn't reveal which man it was, she is forbidden to marry ever to anybody. What if the father says, I don't know who I gave my daughter to, but the guy comes and says it was me. Guy says it was me. I was the one who gave you money for your daughter. We actually believe him. We believe him even to marry. He can consummate the marriage. Doesn't need another Kiddushin. Yeah, maybe he just made it up. The father says, if I was being honest, I don't know who it is. He comes forward, says it was me. We believe him.
He's a good guy.
Huh? Yeah. What if two guys come? Two people show up. Each one says it was me. So none of them can get married. They both have to give a get unless they agree. The imratzu, if they agree, echad neisen get ve'echad kainis. One can give a divorce and one can marry. Says the Rambam knasa ve'achakach ba'acher ve'amar arniu shekidashtiya. What if the guy married her? The guy who says it was me. And then somebody else shows up after they're married and he says, I was the one who actually married her. Since you came late, you're not believed. You cannot forbid. If two people come at the same time and they're competing, it was me, then they both need a get. But if one guy actually marries her, then a second guy shows up contradicting, we don't believe him. Halacha Yudalit. That's all if the father was saying he doesn't know who it is. What if the woman herself is saying? Ha'isha sha'amra. A woman shows up in court and she says, Niskadashti ve'eini yedas lemi niskadashti. I know I got money from somebody, I don't know who. Uba echad va'amar aniyu shekidashtich. And a guy shows up and says, it was me. I love you.
Opportunist.
You were the one. An opportunist, you see. Neman litin get. So here, we only believe him insofar as to make him give a get. V'tiyeh muteres l'chal adam chutz mimenu, then she can go get married to anybody else. We don't believe him to marry her. We believe him to free her, to help her, essentially. give a get and then let her get married to anybody else. We cannot believe him to marry her, because maybe his Yetzer Hara overcame him. He just, he has lust. And she also wants to get married, so she'll just say, yeah, it was him. Like, she'll buy into the exercise, and then they'll end up being married in the wrong way. A man tells a woman, Kidashtich, I married you. She says, never happened. You never consecrated me. So, because he is admitting to having married her, he cannot marry her relatives. Because once you're married to a woman, you cannot marry her mother, sister, daughter. So since you said, I married you, you forbade yourself on everybody else. But she, because she's denying it, and she said, you never married me, she could marry his relatives. What if it's the opposite? The woman says, you consecrated me, and he says, never happened. Same thing the opposite way. He's denying it, so he can marry her relatives. She's admitting it, she cannot marry his relatives. A man comes to a woman, he says, I consecrated you. She says, no, it was my daughter that you married. So again, because he is saying, I married the adult, so he cannot marry the adult's relatives, the mother's relatives. But she could marry his relatives. He can marry the daughter's relatives, because he never agreed to marrying her, admitted to marrying her, and the daughter can marry his relatives. Kidashti as bitech. In the flip side, he tells a woman, I consecrated your daughter. And she says, no, it was me. Who asr b'kreves habas, v'habas muteres b'krevav. Since he admitted to marrying the daughter, he cannot marry the daughter's relatives. She could marry his relatives. Umuter b'kreves ha'em, v'ha'em asur al krevav. And he could marry the mom's relatives, because he's denying that. And she cannot marry his relatives, because she's admitting, saying that he married her. Tezayin. V'chol elo shatayan in Kiddushin. All of these people, or all of these cases where one is saying you married me, one is saying you didn't marry me, they obviously have to have witnesses. B'shatan hatoyin, the case has to be where the guy who's claiming is saying shehayu sham kiddushin bifnei edim v'holchulum dina acheres emesu. There were witnesses at the time of the consecration, they just traveled or they died. Because if you have no witnesses to prove it, then of course the whole thing is null and void. If part of their claim is, I married you in private, there was no witnesses, ein kan kiddushin k'may shebi'arnu. So of course the whole kiddushin is out of question, because there has to be witnesses. V'chol makom shetaymar isha le'ish kidashtani v'hu omer lo kidashtich. A general rule: if a woman ever approaches a man and says, "You married me," and he denies the claim, mevakshem mimenu sheyichtav laget lahatira l'shar ha'am. We ask the guys, look, it doesn't cost you anything. Write her a get. She thinks she's married to you. Write a divorce. This way she can marry anybody else. He doesn't lose anything from doing that, and she gains.
Liabilities.
There is liabilities, but this way, if he gives no get, she can't marry anybody, because she's married.
He has to pay something or whatever.
No. We don't make him pay a ketubah. Just give a get. If he gives a divorce voluntarily, then then we also force him to pay the ketubah, the marital rights, which we're going to learn about in later chapters. Halacha Yud Zayin ha'oisa shliach lekadish la'isha. A man makes an agent to get him a wife. The agent comes to the wife. She looks attractive. He takes her for himself. What do you think happens?
Not a very good agent.
Not a very good agent.
Well, it's Kiddushin.
Yeah. Harezu mikudeshes lashliach. Yeah. She goes to the agent.
Poor guy.
Poor other guy. Poor sender. V'asur lasis kain. You cannot do that though. If you would do that in any other area of sales, monetary business, you'd be called a wicked person, called a Rasha.
So the moral of it never send the shaliach.
That's why we saw the other chapter, mitzvah bo yater b'mishlucha. Better to marry on your own than your shliach, because this is what could happen. Yudches ha'isa shliach lekadesh la'isha v'halach v'kitsha. You make an agent to get you a wife, and he goes and gives her money. But now there's an argument: who is the real husband? Hashliach omer la'atzmi kidashtiya. The agent says, I was an opportunist, I consecrated her to me. No, the woman is saying, no, when you gave me the money, I had in mind your sender. If the original sender hadn't appointed the shliach with witnesses, so it's kind of like the classic claiming case. The shliach who says, I married her, he cannot marry her relatives, but she is denying it, she could marry his relatives. The woman who's admitting to marrying the sender cannot marry the sender's relatives, but the sender could marry her relatives. But if he appointed the shliach, the agent, with witnesses, since we have witnesses who watched that this guy is an agent of the sender, so we have to assume the woman is right, that she did on account of the sender. When she took the money, she had in mind to marry the sender, and therefore she's married to the original guy.
To the sender.
Yes. What if she says, I don't know? I took the money. I don't know who I had in mind. The sender or the agent. If the agent was not appointed with witnesses, she belongs to the second guy, to the shliach, because she says, I don't know. But if with witnesses we know that he is the agent, both the agent and the sender have to give a divorce. Or if they desire, one can give a get and one can actually get married. A woman makes an agent to get her a man. And he goes and gets her a man. While he's on the way, she announces, I cancel my agent. I don't want him to get me a husband. But we don't know when did she say it. Had the shliach already gotten the money or not? So out of doubt, we have to assume that he got the money before she canceled it, and therefore she has to get a get out of doubt. And same thing if a man makes an agent and on the way he retracts, and we don't know when he retracted. If the shliach gave the money, we have to assume he did it before the cancellation, and it's mikudeshet out of doubt. Okay, this guy, where's my slides here? No. This guy goes to one of 5 women, and he gives them money. But he doesn't know which one is the wife. And each one is saying, it was me. Maybe he's a rich guy, Maybe he's a rich Jew. Because it was one of you, I don't know who it is. Everyone's right, it was me, marry me. Exactly. So he really messes himself up. He cannot marry the relatives of any of the women. He has to give a divorce to each one. And also, he has to put down one ketubah value. We're going to see in later chapters, a man owes a woman, in the case of divorce, 200 zuz. 200 in those times currency. It's about $10,000. So here, because he isn't sure, he just puts down $10,000 and leaves. They can figure it out. But if, instead of giving money, he made consecration with relations, in this case, the sages gave him a fine. He has to give a 10K to every woman.
Even if he sleeps with one of them?
Even if he only slept with one of them, exactly.
Then why? Why he has to pay all of them?
Because you shouldn't have done it. You're not supposed to be mekadesh b'biyah. But here, because you chose to do biyah, so the chachamim come down and fine you. The hadavar yadua sheksuba shekasav la'achas me'an avda. The case has to be where the document that he actually wrote up got lost. Otherwise, whoever was the real woman would just bring the document. Each woman is saying, I'm the one you consecrated, I'm the one you wrote the document, and I'm the one who lost the document. And therefore, because he did biyah, he has to give each one their ketubah. Now we're going to go into, this is till the end of the chapter, what's called kol and amatla. I'm not sure why it's on the second line there, but kol means a rumor, and amatla means a mitigation. So usually, witnesses will define whether a woman is married or not. But what if there's a rumor? Pretty well-founded rumor, the rumor is going around town that people saw a woman get married. So anytime there's an amatla means something in the story pops the balloon of the story. There's a mitigation factor. So then that could cancel out a rumor. But if there's no amatla, sometimes we do just trust a rumor. So here we go. It's a long chapter today. I know it's taking a long time. Chav Beis. Ha'isha sheyatza le'akoil she mekudeshes lepleini. There's a woman, the rumor goes out, she's married to Reuven. Harezu becheskas mekudeshes. We have to presume that she is consecrated, afal pi she'ein shem raya brura, even if there's no clear proof. Now, what makes a rumor a good rumor? Any rumor which was never founded in a court, we don't worry about. What's a rumor founded in a court? What would be an example of a rumor which we would presume based on that she's married? Let's say two people come and testify. We were on this block, we saw the house, the lamps were lit, the beds were made, there were men going in and out. Women are chatting and they're very happy and they're saying, our friend got engaged today. They never actually saw the actual consecration. But there's a rumor that there was a whole event around this. That would be a kol. That's a good example of a rumor that becomes founded. But if the witnesses, all they heard was saying, our friend is getting engaged today, not she got engaged. She's getting engaged, then we don't worry about that rumor. The people get cold feet. Maybe they made up to do a consecration. It never happened, never came through. They have to hear that she actually got engaged, actually got married, got consecrated. Same thing if two guys come to court and say, we saw what looked like an event celebrating a betrothal. We heard some echoes, some broken telephone. We heard from a guy or heard from another guy that this lady got consecrated to that guy while two guys were watching. The original witnesses left town or they died. Even though it's broken telephone, that's a good rumor. The rumor makes her considered to be married because we have basic evidence that some kind of a story happened. When do we say that we can believe a rumor if there's no mitigating factor? But if there's a mitigation, and they heard the mitigation with the rumor of the marriage, then there's no presumption of being married. What does it mean, a mitigating factor? Give me an example. What if they said, tonight? We saw a little party, and we heard that this woman got engaged, got married with condition. Or there was a doubtful Kiddushin. So since that pops the balloon. There's no presumption. We ask the woman to tell us what happened, and we rely on her words. Since there's no proof, and there's no strong rumor. What if the rumor came out? The woman is consecrated to this guy, and only after a few days, an excuse, a mitigating factor comes out. If the court says, you know what, it makes sense, even though it came a few days later, we can believe it. We rely on the excuse, and she's not married. But if not, if they don't think that it's a rational excuse, since we didn't hear the mitigating factor together with the rumor, we don't care about the mitigating factor, we only have the rumor and we assume she's married. Says the Rambam Malach Chaf, very rare for the Rambam to do this. Maisa tells us a story. There was a story. There was a woman, a rumor spread that she was engaged, she was consecrated to the son of Reuven. Later they asked the father, and he said, it's true. My son consecrated her, but there was a condition. And the condition never came through. The sages didn't rely on his words. They said, she's married in doubt, as though there's no mitigating factor. Why? Because they only heard it later. Wow. What if we have a rumor about a woman that she's married, she's consecrated to Reuven, but only a rumor. And then as we're watching, Shimon comes and hands her a ring. We now have to check into the original Kiddushin. If we can have actual witnesses proof that she was consecrated to the first guy, the second guy's Kiddushin don't matter. But if we cannot ascertain, if we cannot verify with witnesses that the first one actually happened, we force the original guy, who we only have a rumor about, we force him to give a divorce. And the second guy who we actually watched give a real ring, he gets married. The im geiresh hasheni, if the second guy who gave the actual ring in front of us decides to divorce, lo yichnes harishan, the first guy who only has a rumor can no longer actually marry her. Shema yomru, because people will think, hechzir gerushasei mino eirusin achar shenisar sala acher. It looks like there's a divorcee here that got married to somebody else, broke up the marriage, and he's coming back. You cannot marry a divorcee once she marries somebody else. Even though here there was no actual divorce, but it looks like it. People will start assuming what happened over here. It looks like he divorced her, then remarried her. That's a big problem. So either the second guy gets her or nobody gets her. There's a rumor that a woman is married to Reuven. And another rumor comes out, she's married to B, to Shimon. So now we have two rumors to two different men. Here it's only rumors, so they get together, and whoever agrees, one can consummate the marriage, the other gives a divorce, and that's it. There used to be a famous custom that after you would give a woman Kiddushin, you would then send gifts to the family. So that was the custom, that you only send gifts to engaged girls. Witnesses come and say, hey, we saw a guy sending gifts to this woman. Is that enough to consider them married? We have to worry that she's probably got Kiddushin. Otherwise, why are there gifts coming between the families? And she has to get a get out of doubt. Even if it's a place where most people in the city send gifts before the Kiddushin, but some people send after Kiddushin, we have to worry about Kiddushin. If the place's custom is that everybody sends gifts only before the Kiddushin, then gifts is not a proof of actual Kiddushin, because maybe he gave gifts, then he got cold feet and he canceled the Kiddushin. What if all we have is a marriage contract? We see a ketubah. There's a ketubah written up from one man to a woman. We never saw the Kiddushin. We never saw anything else. So now the question is, was the ketubah written before or after the Kiddushin? If even some people in the city give the consecration and then write the ketubah, we have to worry, since there's a ketubah, maybe she's married. Even if there's no scribe, we don't say, maybe a scribe came to town early, so he wrote the ketubah early, but he never actually gave the money. No, as long as some people give money first, we have to assume he also gave money, and it's Kiddushin. But if the entire city's custom is to write the ketubah before the Kiddushin, as we actually do today, then we do not have to worry at all. Because the fact that we have a ketubah doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that there was actually a Kiddushin. Lamed. Two people say, we saw this woman get married, get consecrated on this day. Two witnesses say, we never saw her. Even if they're all neighbors in one courtyard, we trust the first witnesses that she is consecrated. Why? It's a famous rule in halacha. I didn't see doesn't mean anything. Two guys said, I saw her get married. What do you say? I didn't see her get married. Okay, you didn't see. Maybe they did it quietly. People have a custom to always marry quietly. So, I didn't see means nothing.
So maybe I didn't see means that I saw her and she wasn't there.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
I saw her and she wasn't there is different. I didn't see doesn't mean anything. Lamed Aleph, the final halakha for today. Amar Eid Echad Nikudeshes Hizu Vihi Eimeres Leinis Kadashti. One witness, not two. Two are always powerful. One witness says, this woman is already married. I watched her get money from somebody Kiddushin. And the woman says, never happened. Harezu Muteres, she's permitted. Because a woman against one witness, the woman wins. Echad Eimer Mikudeshes Ve'echad Eimer Eino Mikudeshes. Two witnesses are fighting. One says she's married to this guy, one says she's not. She also says she's not married. So now there's two people against one. Still says the Rambam Leitinase. We have to believe the first guy and she cannot marry anybody else. The Imnises, if she does get married to anybody else, Leitetze, we don't force her out, because she's saying I never married the first guy. So once she got married, we will believe her enough to not force her out of the marriage. Amra, if she says, Mikudeshes ani, I am engaged to a certain guy. Ula'achar zman amda v'kitcha atzma, and then later, she goes and takes Kiddushin from somebody else. So this is in halacha called hapesha asaru hapesha hitir. She's our only source of information. She says, I'm married to that guy, and she goes ahead and takes money from the other guy. So what do we do now? Im nasna masla lidvareha, if she explains her actions reasonably, the Amra, she explains, originally when I said I was married, I only said it for this and this reason. The Talmud says, for example, there was a whole bunch of guys jumping on her. She said, I'm already taken, just to get them off of her back. And we see her words have substance. So then she can go and marry the second guy. But if she gives no excuse, or the excuse she gives is lame, then, by her own admission, she's forbidden. The Kiddushin Sheni, Kiddushin Safik, and the second Kiddushin is only in doubt. He must give her a divorce. She's forbidden to marry anybody until her original husband, who she married to first, comes and cancels his marriage. Same thing if a woman comes and says, I'm actually married, not just Mikudeshet, I'm actually married, I have a full marriage. And then she goes, you know what, I'm single. If she gives an excuse, if she can explain away her actions, and we see that there's substance there, we can believe her, and now she's free to go and marry anybody she wants. How can we believe her? This is the rule. Hapesha asar, hu hapesha hitir. The mouth that forbade is the mouth that permitted. If the only way we know your status is because of what you're saying, you get the right to explain it and change it.
Maybe she has a big fight.
It's true. But since we don't know anything outside of her, we have to believe her. If there's witnesses, then it's different. Because she's not the source. But if this is the Torah's power.
She's testifying.
I know, but the Torah gives you the power to say your own status and then to change it if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then we don't believe her. But if it makes sense, then we have to believe her.
What if they find out later, no, she's really married at the time?
If we have witnesses later, then it becomes a problem. But in the meantime, we have to believe her. Okay? That's it.